Where does she have to go to start the live stream?
She went into that cubby room,
Oh, okay.
the media room.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Paul, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The one who we never see their face, that's Paul.
Oh, I look the same.
We're just waiting for Laura to start the live stream, and then we'll call the meeting to order. So.
Wasn't there some old?
I'm hurting. My back screwed up. I can barely walk, so
Oh,
couldn't
wow.
make it anyway.
Well, it looks like we have a hybrid. Most of us are calling in remotely, but
yeah, go ahead,
Amy
girl.
and Laura are there. So we're okay. I think we're set to go. So why don't we do call to order and roll call? Why don't I just go around and mention people, and then if I missed anybody, let me know. So we've got Chris Zimmerman, we've got Laura Robertson and Amy Hawansky at Town Hall, John Marr, Faith Foley, Amanda Matuzik, Paul Sebesta, and myself, Carol Carey. So first order of business is approval of the minutes from September 9th. Does anybody have any comments or changes to those minutes?
I have a couple.
Okay, that's Amy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, on page 2, line 62, Ms. Robertson noted that one additional Tupelo trees, I think that should just be tree,
Okay.
and another row of Norway spruce. Spruce is not capitalized.
Okay.
Line 67, Ms. Robertson will remind the contractor to send them an alternate plan. So
Okay, just take them, send us an alternate plan.
I'm assuming it's send us, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Hello. And then line 77, they received a temporary CO to run the business, but now they work on the landscaping. I think that's supposed to mean now they still have to work on the landscape.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, but now they still have to.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Then page 382, line 82, Ms. Hawansky noted that pear trees are not a good option. And I don't know if good option is kind of, I guess that's what I meant, but it's a little, it was more of, yeah, they'll survive there, and yeah, they might look nice there, but we have so many other possibilities, and pear trees have been overused in the past. I think there's better options.
And they're mildly
Okay.
invasive.
Not the best option.
Not the best option. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then line 85, it would be great if we can get continuity of planting along the whole area of the town. And I think what Chris meant was the whole section of Balltown Road.
The whole. Does that make sense, Chris?
I mean, certainly the entire town is a grander vision, but I'm not so sure that that's achievable. So why don't we just start, with the section along Balltown and Knott?
Okay, by the section of Balltown Road and Knott Street. Okay.
You might have said the town center overlay district, or I thought we had that later in here.
Yeah, I don't want to say what, I don't want to superimpose on top of you, but it just,
We'll just say Balltown Road.
I thought wasn't as clear.
Along the section of Balltown Road and Knott Street, the town center area.
Okay, not.
Okay.
Line 94, a line of trees need to be planted. That should be an S there, needs to be planted.
Okay.
Line 110, the grant coordinator has offered Schenectady High School trees. It's just a little bit unclear that when I was reading in context, it seemed that it meant that we were being offered trees from Schenectady High School. And really what's going on is that the grant coordinator, Nick, has asked us to hold right now at 40 trees on Dean Street because he would like to give Schenectady High School the opportunity to plant trees. And then if he has some grant trees remaining at the end of the cycle, he might circle back to us and say, hey, at the last minute, do you think you people could take a couple more trees and plant them?
Okay, so we can
Okay.
adjust that. Paul, can
Thank
you
you.
put yourself on mute? There's just a weird noise that's coming from your phone.
Okay.
So we'll say the grant coordinator has offered Schenectady High School
Has
trees.
offered trees to Schenectady High
has
School?
offered trees
Mhm.
to Schenectady High School, but may have some left over
Thank you.
for the
Mhm.
town, like at the end of season or something.
Thank you. Thank you. So point of clarification on lines 111 and 112, is Balltown Quarter considered to be Niskeona downtown, or would that be Union? I'm just not sure.
Our zoning has a town center overlay district that's the kind of encompasses like from Balltown and Van Antwerp up to Balltown and not up to like Crescent
Okay.
and kind of over a little bit and then over to like Town Hall in like a bit of a triangle.
So that is the correct wording then.
Yeah.
Okay,
mhm.
thank you. And then lines 117 and 118, she asked if the highway department would be able to plant the last tree. Ms. Robertson stated she would talk to the highway department. I didn't think it was the highway department, was it? That we were going to have plant the last tree?
So
I thought it was still Nick who was going to plant it.
I think at that time, I can go back and listen if you want me to make sure, but I think at that time we thought we were done with Dean Street. So we were going to see if the highway department would put one more in.
Okay, copy. Thank you
Mhm.
very much for that clarification. And then line 120, the council has a prototype from the Ray Cornelius planting, so it should be a relatively quick project. I think the A has to be
Okay.
inserted.
Mhm.
And that was all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
I was
Thanks,
just
Amy.
noticing,
Yep.
for Amy's at line 117, there's a they that should be a the.
Oh, yeah. Yep, got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And Carol, for the record, can we note that Daryl Bray joined us in person at Town Hall?
Oh, okay, great. Any other comments?
I just had one at line 84.
Mhm.
It would be great if we can get some continuity.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Instead of come. Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Any others? Then does somebody want to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
move it.
Okay. Anyone want a second?
Amy Hawansky will second.
Okay. And all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye, I guess. Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Laura, any privilege of the floor?
no emails and there's nobody in the room tonight.
Okay. So new business, we have the fall foliage contest. So the Public Outreach Committee did meet and decided to do a fall foliage contest for the residents of Niskeona to submit pictures of Niskeona trees in their glory. And John and Amanda and Amy, the other Amy, all worked on it. And John got the website so you could upload. And Amy drafted the communication, which went out in an email push. And so I am interested if we're getting many entries, John. So,
We're up to 3.
oh boy. Oh, no. 'Cause
Well,
we
it's
got
early, you know.
many.
If I was going to enter, I would wait till I had my best picture and then submit it. And the deadline's late October. You only get to do one picture. right? One
Oh, that's
submission.
right. You only do get one picture. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it would be a good idea for us to send out another email reminder as we approach the deadline, just to remind people.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
definitely
Laura,
do
can
another.
we do that?
Yeah, we can do another blast. Like, don't miss your chance to win. $25
Right.
gift certificate might get people's attention. They always like that when we're at farmers markets. And
Yeah.
I can just tell you,
we
I got
did,
some feedback from I can't remember, a couple residents who really liked the idea of the contest. So I know that there's people who noticed and liked the idea, but they haven't submitted yet because you have to find a good picture.
Okay.
Is
And
is
we
it
did-
photography or all mediums? Excuse me.
It's photography.
Yeah, the webpage can only accept a 2 megabyte file, so I don't think a video would work.
And is it only trees seen in Niskeona?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's where we set the rule when we talked about it. We said it had to be Niskeona.
Mhm.
When the committee talked about it. Yeah.
And we did get from Stewart's free ice cream cones again. Chris, right? Remember you had suggested that at the Arbor Day oh, good. And they showed up. And then John has also reached out to some businesses. So ShopRite is going to do a $25 gift certificate for the winner, along with Rico's Pizza.
Right.
And
I have those gift certificates now.
Great.
They've given
Great.
me, okay, yeah.
So we do have a couple prizes for the winners. And we may be getting something from Hatchet Hardware, right? That's a possibility.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a no on them. I was supposed to submit a form and they get back to me, but it's a process.
Okay.
So you send
Okay.
the form to some others headquarters someplace, and someone there looks at it. So I told the local person here, the manager, that we wanted to launch soon. So she was going to try to speed it up, but I guess I still haven't heard anything. So
Well, and
something
when
might
we-
come to.
Yeah, when we come to that, I have been speaking to the person in New York City about the landscaping at Hatchet Hardware. And they are going to come up next week. So that may be, I don't know, that wouldn't be, we shouldn't kind of combine, but anyways.
Yeah.
And before we approve your landscaping plan, can you
Yeah,
give
we
us a
probably should
$25?
not do that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So great. Yeah. So I hope we get a lot of great entries from the fall foliage, and Faith has put it on the Instagram account, and she's talking to the principal and the club that you're in. So we may be getting high school and school entries too, which is great,
Yeah.
Faith. Thanks.
When I was setting up the webpage, since at the meeting we talked about maybe different age groups, and we hadn't really finalized it. So just temporarily, I put in some age groups, and we never changed it. So now we have it. When people go in, they'll see under age 12, or 12 to 18, or over than 18. So we now have 3 age groups
Okay.
set up. So I guess we're flexible. We can change it depending on what we get. Maybe we won't get any under than 12, but.
No, I
Okay.
think that's good. I'll put it out to I can put it out to Girl Scouts and stuff to get some of the younger ones. I think the younger ones, it would be really fun to see what they take a picture of.
One
We just
more.
have to then make sure we have 3 prizes in addition to the ice cream cones that everybody is supposed to get. So,
Oh, everyone gets a free ice cream cone.
yeah, well, we have
Ah,
50
okay.
some, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of them in here.
A
So,
participation prize, yeah.
yes, yeah. So we may need a third.
A clarification question. Does the entrant have to live in Niskeona?
Yes,
It doesn't say that on the rules. It says the tree needs to be Niskeona.
Yeah.
but it
We don't
really
say
is.
they have to be Niskeona resident. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's assumed, or maybe we should clarify that, but I mean, I think it's for Niskeona residents. We don't want people from Altamont and Glenville submitting and getting the prizes. It wouldn't look so good if somebody from Saratoga wins our Niskeona tree
Mhm.
prize.
Yeah.
So,
So that might need to be
Yeah.
clarified.
I'll add that to the webpage.
Thank you, sir.
okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's it on the contest, and on new business. We can move on to the discussion items. And Laura, it looks like we have a few landscaping plans we need to talk about.
Yeah, I can bring them up on the screen.
Okay.
The first one is the 3410 State Street, which I'll get up on the screen. But we had that at the last meeting, and you saw our recommendations, and they did change their landscaping plan. They added a couple trees. You guys can chat while I'm bringing it up if you want.
Okay.
Just said, I don't know if this is new business or maybe a discussion item that might be appropriate at the end of the, but to talk about this year's upcoming budget for tree plantings. I didn't know if we want to touch upon that here today, or should we have that discussion at our next tree council meeting?
I think that is good. I think we should. Do you want to just put that as the first discussion item, and then that will give me a chance to bring up the landscaping plans?
Sure.
And while you're doing that, also, have we heard an update from 2147 Eastern Parkway?
No, they haven't submitted anything yet to us. So when we get a resubmit, I'll bring that back to you guys.
Okay.
So Chris, do you want to bring it up, or Laura, do you, about our budget and where we stand with that and why we think we need some further action on it?
Yeah, so I still have to kind of object to this through the normal processes, which are the tentative budget that was brought forth by the town supervisor had a significant cut in the budget to tree planting. 2 years ago, we had two lines. Well, the highway department had two lines for tree planting. One was replacement and one was new. And one was $6,500 and $5,000. So that's $11,500 total. Last year, we had to cut it to $5,000. Or no, it was $4,500. So it was $9,000 total. So we lost like $2,500 last year, partly because of COVID and just changes that we had to make in our budget to get through the year. And I didn't think that was the end of the world. But this year, it's proposed at $2,000 and $2,000. So if you look holistically, like, it's kind of a massive reduction in funding for trees. And we're not sure that I know that, like, when it was presented at the budget, they said that they had caught up with a lot of the tree planting list, but we have to have a certain amount of spending per person per capita in the town of Niskeona to be a certified tree city, which everybody likes to talk about, which is good and important to talk about because it's a recognition that the town is working really hard on these things. And so for that reason, I think it's really important to at least bring it back to the 4,500 level. Because one of the things I'm not actually including here is the miscellaneous budget was also cut. But we don't really mess around with the miscellaneous budget. But overall, a lot of money was lost to the trees this year in the tentative budget. I'm currently have a couple of proposals that I have to submit to the town board prior to the next budget hearing. But in the meantime, we had talked about possibly like just sending a request from the tree council, right, Chris, that says, it's really important to keep the funding levels this high. And one of the things that we also discussed is potentially with the highway department being so short-staffed, there might be another way that we can leverage the funding so that it's not so overwhelming to them to have to plant that many trees. Like maybe we could hire a contractor to plant the trees or something. So put the budget back to where it was and find creative ways to get the trees planted if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
What
Laura,
is
kind of a point of clarification. So can you just give us a general sense of where we're at within the budget process? So when would, the budget be finalized? And so what is the timeline that we're operating on?
So there's a budget schedule online, but we're right in the beginning. Well, it's like the middle now. But really, the first time that the public saw the change, which was me, saw the tentative roll filed with the 2000 was in the budget hearings that were in the beginning of October. And they haven't revised the budget based on comments yet. So there's only been one budget hearing so far. I think there'll be two more, and then it's adopted in early November.
So we don't have too much time.
No, but there still are hearings and requests that can be made.
The money that is allotted for silver maple removal because we can't do it. We have to hire for that. Is that in one of those two lines?
No, that's in the miscellaneous line.
But that line was also cut.
That line was also cut, but not as much.
What does that line stand at now?
I'm doing that from memory.
So
I think it's like
would we then, would we recommend trying to reestablish the funding at the 2019 level? Or what do we think would be a request that we should, be making? Because, and then what is the process for that? So would that be, is that something that we would try to formalize in a motion, I guess? Or what would you recommend, Laura?
Yeah, we could do a vote by the tier council for a memo to the town board, asking for the reinstatement of some funds to the tree planting budget, and we could come up with some reasons on that.
And Laura, where do we stand so far this year? So are you saying this year it's 4,500 for replacement and 4,500 for new?
Correct.
And have they used the 4,500 for new plantings?
I don't have access to that, so I couldn't tell you if they have used the funds or not yet this year.
So just to clarify, so the current budget for, replacement and new for this fiscal year that we're operating in is $9,000 total.
Correct.
The proposed budget for next year would be a total of 4,500 for replacement and new plantings.
No, 4,000.
So
4,000.
Yeah,
4,000,
yeah.
right? And so historically, I think it was a total of 12 or something like that. Laura, is
Yeah,
that
11,500.
11,500.
For many years, for like 7 or 8 years, it was that.
So that's a huge percentage decrease.
Traditionally, when green space, and I'm talking physical green space like park space, when a town begins to eat away at physical green space, it traditionally is never recovered. And so what you want to do usually is prevent that small chipping away from happening, because even if there's promise of in the future regaining that, most of the time it's not regained. And I'm looking at that as being the same thing that's happening with the budget for green space, which is steadily declining now. I think we also have a significant argument that we're working very hard on, shall we call it, matching grants, right? So we worked very hard on this grant that was received by Soil and Water. So we're not just relying on the budget. We're making lots of efforts to add trees to the town beyond the budget. And I think that needs to be acknowledged and, in a sense, rewarded.
So I guess I would make a suggestion, and then I can make a motion that the tree council recommends that the budget be, maintained at the total of $9,000 for new tree plantings and for replacement plantings. So the budget be maintained the same as the 2021 fiscal year. If you think that's appropriate, that level of funding, the 9,000 as opposed to the 11,500. And then we then work as a council to develop offline a memo outlining the justifications and reasons why that line item should be maintained. So utilizing just what Amy just said, capture that. The tree council just planted 40, utilized and worked with outside funding sources to plant 40 trees. So I think that we have a number of bullets that we could provide that justification on. So would you, is everybody, like, I guess that's what the general topic, agreement on the funding level that we should recommend?
Because from 2019, we're at 35%. So we're almost 2/3 less budget than we were going into this coming year. And also what's unusual is that we don't know if the budget is being spent since the highway department spends it. And so if it's not getting spent this year, you can see why they're going to cut it, which is, if they're not planting the trees, the 4,500 that we have this year, it's difficult without having control over that with the highway department and without having that communication and connection with them. But Chris, to your point, I think a motion should be made. So
I think that also it's worth noting that the budget, assuming the budget has been spent and that we've gone out, I mean, we've had to meet our needs for trees, we have to get grants. We can make the argument very easily that the funding before was inadequate. Like, we needed more money. Like, we haven't planted trees that we didn't need. Those were trees that were, we could use more trees. So, yes, we should be rewarded for going out and getting the funding and finding the grants, but the bottom line is we need more money than we had been getting. And they've been,
well, and to be honest, we just stumbled upon this grant from Dean Street that Schenectady County reached out to us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to plant those 40 trees. And Laura, if the highway department doesn't feel like they have the resources to plant the trees this year, could we even hire a contractor with that 4,500 or with the 9,000 that hasn't been spent and plant some trees?
I mean,
They
I
have the
will ask.
resources. That's malarkey. They have resources. You have a lot of people on bad weather days. I don't buy that argument. They've been planting them for years. Now they're planting what we're planning, like a third, and we can't even do that. Or even cutting it to 9,000. They just don't want to. Laura, the reason. It's not that they can't.
Well,
Have other line
They can.
items in the budget been, shall we use the word restored to pre-COVID levels?
some of them have
I
and
would
some
say-
of them haven't, and some of them were cut even further. So
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us the per capita amount that we have to spend based on Tree City USA requirements?
it's $2 a person.
And what does that bring us to then for the town?
Well, I have to actually, our population changed in the 2020 census, so I looked it up. It's higher than it was before. I think it's about 23,000 people, so it ends up we need about $45,000 spent total. But we also are able to count tree council time. So I always count the volunteer tree council hours. I'm allowed to count time spent removing trees. So when they send me a list of the trees that are removed, like I calculate an average cost to the town for tree removal and put that in there. And we're also allowed to count tree maintenance, which last year they gave me a log of their maintenance hours.
And I'm assuming you're allowed to count the highway department's labor installing the
For
tree.
installing, correct. But we've typically, until last year, we've used the tree planting budget was actually pretty high because we also had a lot in miscellaneous, which we were also allowed to use. So at least half of the $2 per person was allocated to the planting budget. I think because we spent so much time maintaining trees last year, it vastly outnumbered all the other things. I don't know if that's true this year or not. But I think that it makes sense to have at least about half of your $2 a person spent on tree planting. That makes sense to me because the other half is maintenance and removal.
And if we look at this year's budget of a total of 4,000, and we say maybe roughly $250 per tree at the size that the highway department was getting to install with bigger caliper bulb and burlap. That's just a rough number. That allows us to buy only 16 trees per year, which is extremely low. And I think we should also we should use Steve's and Chris's computer program software information that you guys gathered that shows the red spots, the hot spots in town that are tree barren, that are tree deserts. And we can use that to show that we still have a big need in town where there are areas that are devoid of trees, and 16 trees a year will not help us. It's kind of like paying the interest on our loan, but never getting to the principal. We're never going to catch up with only 16 trees a year.
But we don't have right now good data on removals, but my sense is just in my neighborhood, we've lost greater than 10 trees within Old Niskeona. So in this past calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then two, given with impacts from emerald ash borer, I
Good point.
am, you know, certain that, you know, we've lost more than 16 trees in this calendar year in Niskeona. So we need double that, you know, approximately, just to probably replace the trees that are being lost.
And we have to
maintain our
forecast that that's
current
going to
status.
continue too. I
Yes.
mean, what you've just
So-
estimated is going to continue because
You'll have more.
the silver maples, there's still a whole bunch that we've gone around and driven around and looked at that are in decline, that we're watching, that we know are going to be removed.
So essentially, we're on a downward decline with this budget.
Yes.
And with the trees, more trees are being taken down than are being planted. So I think we definitely need to do, you know, to make that known.
So I think that, you know, at this point, just in the, you know, interest of moving on to our other discussion
Mhm.
items, you know, I think that we want to craft this memo. Are we asking that it be restored to pre-COVID levels, which
Yes.
was 11,500?
I would aim
Or-
high, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I would start with that. And also, Laura, if we can figure out with the new census, what's the minimum that we need to be maintained to be a tree city?
Yes.
You know, and have that as, this is the bottom line if we want to and I know you've got the 45,000 and you've got the other, but we could figure out, we could calculate essentially what we need on a yearly basis for tree planting.
And another bullet point that we could add is we're seeing a lot of new neighborhoods, right? We're seeing all these new developments going in, or new buildings, which is removing a lot of woodland space, removing a lot of trees. And then with our current town mandates, you know, it's like 2 trees in front of each home. So that really doesn't replace what we're being lost. And because we're having all these new developments in town, that's also making us go backwards to a deficit.
And also with the inflation experiencing really across the board, you're not going to get trees for $250 next year. The same tree, it's going to be $275, $300. So calculate, you know, there'll be 14 trees or 13 trees or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So
Everything's gone up tremendously.
Yeah.
So Carol, do you want me to make a motion? Is that what we want to do here? And so
yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. Yeah, let's make a motion about increasing our budget to at least, you know, the 2019, which was 11,500 level, or maybe even go 12,000 with
inflation.
inflation. Yeah. And as a starting point. Now, Laura, what do you think? I mean,
I think that's good. If you guys wanted to make a motion on the memo stating, you know, generally speaking, that you're in support of bringing it to the, you know, the 11,500, and then
Mhm.
that you're comfortable with some of the reasons we discussed in the minutes being included in the memo, then a couple of us could work offline on that and make sure that it gets to the town board maybe by the end of tomorrow, if we could, would be good.
mhm.
Okay, so does anybody else want to make the motion? I mean, open it up to, you know, I can do it, you know, if you want. I
Go
try.
ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
I make a motion that the tree council draft a memo requesting that the new tree planting and replacement tree planting budgets be restored to a total of $500, which were the pre COVID-19 levels, in the year 2019.
Mhm.
Just
Anybody want to second that?
it's 11,500.
Are you sure
I'm going to second that.
sure that's the amount? I was looking at an old budget and I thought it was 12.5.
How about if we just, in the motion, just say to pre-COVID levels?
That's
Well, I
good.
think we should have a number.
Okay.
Is that
You could just say, we could amend do you want to amend the motion to, I suggest I make a motion that we amend the motion to set it at $12,000 for new and replacement tree plantings.
Mhm.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Great. Who wants to work on this with Laura? I'm gonna be out of pocket tomorrow. My husband's has some surgery, so I could work on it after that, but not tomorrow. So, and Chris, I think you might have some good input.
Yeah, I can work on it with you, Laura.
I mean, we could also send it on Monday too.
So
It's okay either way.
And then what is the date of the next budget hearing where there's privilege of the floor?
Oh, Paul's totally right. It was 6,500 and 6,000.
okay,
Well, he
Paul
is a
has
numbers
good
guy.
memory.
so we're gonna go
I
with
just
two. Go ahead. I think we should go with 12,500 then, back to what it was in 2019.
I make a motion, we amend the motion to 12,500.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I
Okay,
just did the quick calculation at $300 per tree for $12,000. That's 40 trees. I think my math is right. So that's not a lot of trees.
That's, and,
No, but it's better than
and
what we're-
also that money isn't just installing, right? Because that covers some other things too sometimes, like tree gators and, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah. we have-
stakes and some items like that as well.
comes out of
So
his
it,
lane.
it reduces it a little bit more too.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
but I'm concerned we're not even using the money we have now for planting trees.
yeah, I'll follow up on that.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
And
Can we
then I
add that
just
to as a discussion item to our next meeting's
Okay.
agenda, Laura. That
Yep.
would be great if you could follow up. So the status of the 2021 tree planting budget.
In the
Yeah, because
past,
if we don't use it, then it's gonna be hard to say we need more, we want to go back, because whenever you
Correct.
don't use it, then it often gets cut. So
now, correct me
I
if
thought-
I'm wrong, Paul, I think in a previous year, you, I don't know the correct word, pre-ordered or set aside or encumbered some monies at the end of a year so that we could then buy the trees when they came in the spring. Like we ordered them now and then
Right.
we
Yeah.
set
that's the
aside that
process.
money and then they got delivered in the,
late in December. Yep. All the unspent money. I bought those elms.
right.
You
So
have to buy them in 2 years, really.
could we
Sure.
do something like that again so we don't lose this money? Is there some other thing?
I can't. Yes.
right.
That's the process. That's the way it should work. And there never should be with that limited budget, even with 12,500. It's not enough, as you pointed out, and every dime should be spent.
So Laura,
By
could you
December
find out
31st.
if it's been spent, and if not, can we then,
also work on that. Yep. I
And,
will.
Yeah.
and I think we've also, correct me if I'm wrong again, didn't we also use some of that money forecasted like that for the people to do the master plan and these sorts of things? So maybe it's not only physically trees, but it's our overall vision of having our trees done. Is there some other thing that we could, is there some computer program thing
For
that
that
we?
for that kind of service, you'd have to have a contract in place. I placed an actual order for trees. You can't
Uh-huh.
encumber us, the thought of
Yeah.
doing
Uh-huh.
something.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, but our strategy cannot be that we're getting our money from grants and from the goodness and kindness of other counties versus having a workable budget where we can plant trees. Like most of the trees we planted this year, I believe, came from that Schenectady County National Grid grant. Or a large part of it, 40 trees. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I will see if I can see what's been spent, what's been encumbered, and if it seems like it's still very, very full, I'll ask if we can help and maybe just
Mhm.
take that if we can on. I know we're really super busy, but I think it is really important to spend this line this year if we can.
Mhm.
If it
Yeah,
hasn't been spent, it's possible it's been spent. I actually truly don't know. So I'll double check and then get back to you guys on that.
thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on to the landscaping plans? Laura, were you able to pull up the
Yep, I'm ready.
State Street?
I know Amy started to ask a question and then something else came up, but the next public hearing is October 21st.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me share this with you guys. So at the last meeting, we talked about 3410 State Street, and they did make some changes to their plans. Can you guys see that? I know it's
Yeah.
probably hard for us to read, but so what they did was they added 3 red buds here where this was just grass before. So they added 3 trees on that one corner where we asked them to add trees. And then we had said that this isn't overwintering all the time. So they made it dwarf Alberta spruce, crested lady fern, which is still going to die back, purple rain lilac sage, and then dwarf fountain grass. It's mostly dwarf fountain grass. They did at the planning board meeting discuss cultured stone around the bottom, but they didn't end up going forward with that. They ended up doing, I think, something different, or they're working on something different at the architectural review board, but they did discuss that. But this is the revised planting plan based on our comments.
I'm
Didn't we
noticing that the dwarf
ask for-
Alberta spruce is in a 2-gallon container. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, oh, sorry. I'm gonna, just Amy can't read this because my screen is set like super, super low. Yeah, that was
So-
definitely a 2.5 gallon.
So that is, dwarf Alberta spruce is extremely slow growing. At the nursery where I work, it's the slowest growing thing we sell. Literally this much a year, little tiny, quarter, half an inch. And so if it's coming in a 2.5-gallon container, the plant maybe, I'm guessing, would be a foot tall. I don't know that that's going to achieve what we were asking for 5.5 feet of coverage on that side, correct?
Yeah.
That I don't feel that that's appropriate.
Okay, so larger dwarf Alberta spruce
Or faster growing evergreen.
or faster growing.
If they could get, a 3 to 4 footer initially,
Yeah, then it would
4
just be
footer.
healthy, right?
Yeah.
So what were the items that they actually changed?
So they added the trees here. This was all stuff that lost its leaves, so they added the Alberta spruce. And
What is the width of that building? Or maybe it is interpreted as length.
they didn't do the cultured stone. Our 3 things were, it's not year round, consider cultured stone, and add trees on the corners of the properties.
Will
So-
the 3 Alberta spruce cover what we're trying to cover?
No
Laura?
way.
No.
So that's what I was wondering, the length or width of that stretch across the building there.
So that, the only thing I know off the top of my head, that's like 2 feet. Probably at least 24 feet,
24 feet.
22 to 24 feet.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough quantity either
Okay, so increase quantities.
of whatever evergreen they choose. Right, so
Well, if-
at the size and at the number and the type of evergreen they've chosen, they're gonna have little tiny, little baby Christmas tree looking little items in front of a
Giant wall.
6 foot, 5.5 foot tall wall that's 24 feet long. It's almost gonna be comical.
Okay, so
So do we want to tell them to use the Alberta spruce, but increase like to 6 or 7 or?
And how far is it from the street to that building?
it's about 8 to 10 feet.
I'm not sure why they chose dwarf Alberta spruce. I'm just not sure. You usually get them in the smaller sizes. They're super slow growing. They're susceptible to salt spray. So I'm just not sure why they chose those. But the whole point
We
was,
have another suggestion. I think if we just leave it open, I don't think that's good. I think we should specify what we would like and how many.
Yeah, no one can hear you if you don't speak into the microphone, Daryl.
come back, Daryl.
You can take that
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
with you.
So do we know what type we want? And
Well, I think you have a valid suggestion of starting with a bigger plant. Installing something that's already 5 feet tall would be a step in the right direction, and installing more of them.
Yeah, so I've got larger and or faster growing evergreens and increased quantities. Are we okay with the red buds? That seems fine to me. I know he was a little iffy about trees, so if he's happy with the type of tree and it's a red bud, it seems fine with me.
Is that why he wanted the dwarf? Because he didn't really want trees? Are they more
Well,
like
right,
shrubs? I'm
like
not-
he's been very iffy about landscaping because of like having to be able to have a view of a camera, like of every angle of the property, and having it be surveyed and monitored by the police and stuff like that. So he's been very picky about what to plant and where, but he was fine with those trees, so that seems like a win.
so Laura, I think
and-
instead of just saying increase the quantity of the dwarf Alberta spruce, we should, and maybe Amy
Of
can figure
evergreen.
out, for that 24 feet, how many it should be, at least 5, at least 6, or whatever the number should be, so that he doesn't just add one more and call it good.
Okay, so
You make a fair point, Carol, and I'm happy to drive over there and estimate that.
okay.
And then also I call attention to the size of the red bud, a number 3, which means a 3-gallon pot.
It's tiny.
I don't think he's going to find something in a 3-gallon. They usually come the smallest in 5s, and usually in a 7 or a 10. And that would be so tiny. Again, it would be comical. And usually when you're planting a tree in a street tree situation or a parking lot situation, you don't want to be that small because they're so easily destroyed. But, even when you move the snow up, and
Yeah.
I think it has to be more substantial.
Okay, so more
Um,
substantial size on trees.
So we could dictate the minimum caliper or the minimum pot size.
I feel like we should say minimum of 1.5 inch. What do you think?
I think you could use 1.5 inch and or 15-gallon, because sometimes with certain species of trees, it's a big tree for that species of tree, and yet the trunk is a little thin.
Okay. So I've got larger or faster growing evergreens, increase the quantities of evergreens with Amy's estimate, and then they need a more substantial size on trees, on 1.5 or 15-gallon.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's progress though.
it is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, shall we move on to the River's Ledge then?
So I talked to River's Ledge yesterday about the park and reminded them that they still owe us a landscaping plan. because we talked about this at our last meeting. Sorry, there's so many of these little windows and they're never in the right spot. But this is the one planting plan we have for the foundation plantings, but they're doing another one, like so that there'll be at least 2 versions of the landscaping plan with different plants, which is good. But what he said to me was there's another foundation plan coming, which will obviously change the overall planting list. But they think that the tree planting on site is good. That's what they've submitted to us. And I did not realize that. So like this part of it isn't being changed. This will have a sister. And they did update some things. Like we had said no, euonymus or something because it was invasive. And they did take those things out and changed them to like sweet spire and stuff. And when we looked at this last, we said you have too many maples. And so they did they basically changed maples to black gum tupelos. They now have 38 black gum tupelos and 6 maples. I guess it's better, but it's not super diverse. And then I thought we had talked about this, that they have 102 of river birch. But I went back and looked at our notes. I printed them upstairs, but I forgot to bring them down. And it wasn't in the comments that we gave them. And I can't remember if maybe that's because we decided it was okay or it just never made it, because we definitely haven't ever commented, at least formally to them, on 102 river birch trees. But that just seems like a ridiculous amount of one type of species to plant. But maybe we decided it would create consistency looking in the subdivision. Does anybody remember talking about the river birch?
I know we talked about everything overall, about the numbers being high overall. For example, we talked about the spirea, the gold flame spirea, 128, which is a huge number. And couldn't we have some other plants in there that would be pollinators and or even not 128 of the same cultivar? Maybe there could be different cultivars, so we get some different looks in there. But
and some of that will change when we get the duplicate, right? Because they'll at least go in half. Because a lot of those huge numbers are the foundation plantings.
Right. And I know I specifically brought up the boxwood 500.
Yes. And that's why they're doing the second foundation planting. And it's hard for us. I'd say it's hard for us to figure out the foundation planting species, which are all kind of down here. But we can know that I think that the Colorado blue spruce show up as a tree, like a tree along the road. The black gums, crab apples, river birch, serviceberry, and red maple, they are definitely like sprinkled throughout the subdivision. They have some of them going down here. Like we had looked at this before. They added a line of the tupelo here. And maybe the river birch are foundation plantings.
I don't count where are there 100 and some odd river birch icons on there?
Maybe they're actually on here. The river birch are. I feel like what I was thinking is it may be useful, because he still hasn't done the second foundation plan, to just give him one more round of notes so that they can give us a better updated. Let's see, the river birch are number 3. And I know they put some over here. They definitely put some over here. Number 3s. See, here's a bunch of 3s. Yeah, so they're all along here. Like, look, there's a bunch of them here. Those are all 3s. Those are all 3s. They're all along the edges there.
So Laura, what are you thinking we should do here?
Well, it's I know it's kind of hard. Here's more threes. I was just trying to see where they are. To do it at a meeting, but I'm wondering if maybe one or two people next week we want to come to the big plans and we can make up a copy of the big plans and then draw on it and then scan it and send it to them. That worked the best for the park. That's what we did for the park. I color coded it and I sent it to them and I said, you can't have 5 million of one species. And they're still grumbling that they have no consistent look down there, but we have so many different trees down there. It's really exciting. So we just got to figure out a way to label them so that people walking through can see, can start to learn about the different trees. But yeah, so unless there was a reason that we wanted to keep the birch, but the birch seems like the easiest street tree in that subdivision to diversify because there's so many of them. Like even if we just came up with like 4 alternatives to river birch and said, please take this 108 and divide it into these species, you can update the plans as appropriate, because they sort of listened, right? We said you have too many maples, so they just changed them all to tubelos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Katsura or something, or
There,
sweet gum.
and there are some trees, if you go back to the tree list, there are some that there's just one of, where there's one weeping Japanese cherry. So maybe increase that to 5, and then you can reduce your river birch by 5. I mean, you could do that for several of these, right? Because there's only 2 Royal Star magnolias, 6 Cornus cusa. So they could even increase some of the other ones they've already spec'd.
Yeah. And I mean, the other
So-
thing is I could just write them a general thing saying, great, send us the second foundation plan. You still need to diversify your street tree planting plan and then see what they come up with.
Well, I liked your idea if people could meet next week, Laura. I'm just not, sure who's available. And coming up is the Ace Hardware, in which they're going to be up next week, either Wednesday or Thursday, and wanted to meet with people from the Tree Council or you, Laura, to go over the landscaping plan
Yeah, I was
in
really,
person.
that's our next agenda item, and I put that on there because I was really glad that you took that one forward and started scheduling something with them because I know that's really important. So, I mean, I don't mind sitting down with the plans and coloring it in, and then maybe sending it to Amy and a couple other people to see what they think before we send it on to them. Either.
I think that makes sense. But that's adding more work for you, Laura.
Yeah. These, I'm not going to touch these because they're going to change, but I would just work on these top, probably 10
Yeah.
and say, here's the issue we see here. Here's some ideas. And even if just at the end of the meeting, Amy can just give me a list of things she can think of for river birch, I'll just write it down. And then I can just sit with the plants and see if I can color them a little.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, then I think I'm done with plans.
Except Ace Hardware, right?
Yeah, so they haven't submitted a revised plan, but Carol, if you just want to update them, I know you just kind of did. But on the
Sure.
first
So
card, right?
we had given them 5 recommendations, and they were, and I don't know if we can pull that up,
Oh yeah.
but they were in agreement with all 5, other than replacing the trees along the driveway, only because they say they don't own that property, that's not theirs. So
they don't.
we
So-
would have to talk to the people that was at 1031 Knott Street. And is that the bank? I'm not sure. But they said everything else they're fine with, but they would like to meet. And the woman that I've been speaking with, Laura, is from New York City. And so she's planning a trip up. I asked her if she knew before our tree council meeting which day, but she could only get it down to Wednesday or Thursday next week that she will be coming up, and then wanted to, walk the property, walk it with people from the tree council and discuss the plantings. And Amy, I know you were interested in that.
I am, yes. That I'm assuming is going to be during typical work hours.
Yeah. I'm
So that
wondering
I
if
would
we
have to
could-
just get approval to get off of work. Carol, can you, or Laura, can you clarify when they say that they don't own enough space along the edge of that driveway, how much right of way or how much space is there really?
There's only like a foot. I can show you that.
Okay. On
so-
both sides or just on one side?
They don't even own it. I think it's actually an easement.
And Laura, while you're looking that up, the other thing they brought up is we had mentioned that they needed to trim the silver maples, but they had to do it well.
Carefully.
Carefully, yes. So they were asking, did we know of a contractor who we would recommend? Because again, she's from New York City. I don't know if we can do that or what sort of guidance we can provide them with that.
So the town can't recommend, but I don't see any reason why the tree council couldn't recommend.
Mhm. And do we know of anyone that we would recommend?
I do not.
Davy, and I have no affiliation with them, Davy Tree Company, D as in dog, A, V as in Victory, E as in Edward, Y, Davy. They're reputable. They have a certified arborist on staff and they're well known in the community. That might be a
Okay.
place to start. I drove by there today. I was also a little concerned because they have black, I guess you would call it landscape fencing just behind the trees. So if you go from the road to the sidewalk to those first couple of trees on their property, then there's some black fencing that's supposed to sort of kind of protect those trees. And then they're working on the front portico area. And there was like a big machine out front digging. The fencing is really close to the trunks and a lot of damage could be done to those trees with the area left unprotected. So we may want to mention to them to move that protective fencing farther away from the tree to protect more of the root zone.
Oh, whoops, sorry for the clicks, but you can see like this black line is the curb for the edge of sidewalk that's the curb that they put in, and they've got like a foot or a foot and a half to their property line here. But you can see this is the edge of clearing, so there's actually like this beautiful lawn and plenty of like apparent space to make a stately line of trees. But they definitely wouldn't be able to do it on their property. There's no question. This is only like a foot and a half, even probably less when you get down here.
Can you orient us?
Can you what? Oh, sorry. This is let me zoom out a little so you can see. Oops. This is not street here. This is Balltown. Not street, Balltown.
Thank you. Now,
Yeah.
what about the other side of the driveway?
Yeah,
The other
so-
side's a building.
Yeah, the other side is, see, that's what I'm saying. I think this is an easement, and the other side has a sidewalk, and it's owned by it's the professional office building, the brown one.
Mhm.
Yeah, and their sidewalk is right here. It's like almost to the edge of this, and they do have some trees between the sidewalk and the building, but that's definitely their trees.
Mhm.
Some
Okay.
of them don't even look super great. I think one of them might be an ash. You got 'em.
Yeah, I think there were 3 ash over there.
Yeah.
So the woman seemed very receptive to what we suggested. So I think, if we have ideas when we meet with them next week, I think they would be receptive to it. So,
I agreed with their, what direction would that be? North wall facing, there were some scrubby things that they wanted to remove. I get it. I
Yeah.
get why.
Gross.
Yeah.
They're mostly buckthorns.
So I think our next action steps with this is just to meet with them next week and to finalize the planting plan. Does
Yeah.
that make sense, Laura?
Yeah, and then they can resubmit it to us. I don't know if we'll have time to look at it before our next meeting, before they might want to try and plant. But as soon as we get a revised one, I can just email it to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, because I said we could work with them between now and our next tree council meeting. Because they were trying to, she wanted to be on the call tonight, and I said, no, we'll discuss it tonight, and then we'll meet with you next week, and then, if you can send us the revised plan, we don't have to wait necessarily to the next meeting, so.
Is it possible for any of us to go over there before she comes so that we kind of do an analysis and a final recommendation bullet list so we are prepared and on the same page with ourselves before we meet with her?
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely do that.
Laura, on the recommendation of a contractor, I think that should be run by the deputy attorney, even though we're not the town, we're an arm of the town. And if we were even to do that, I wouldn't give one name, I'd give several.
Couple.
So,
Yeah.
so they're making a choice of their own.
Yeah, that's fair, Paul. We can do that just to be safe.
I would.
I gotta jump off. Great to see everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
See you.
Chris.
Chris.
Good, Chris, to see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So any more comments on the Ace Hardware?
Okay, so do you guys want to schedule either you could either do a meeting with a couple of you walking around. He won't mind. All the people there were really nice. Or you guys could go over there separately and just email me things that you see, and we could combine it all into an email. I don't know what works easier for you.
You mean beforehand, before we meet with them?
Yeah, like you
next-
guys could go Wednesday, Tuesday, and just make your own bullet point list and email them to me, and then I could do a master that we could have. Or we could meet together, like, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday night and see what we see.
It might be better to do it together because people may have all different ideas.
Mhm.
And then you've got this whole list of plant a sweet gum here, no plant
Mhm.
a river birch here. We may not all be, where if we're together, we could kind of, I think, come up with a plan.
Who is interested in participating?
I will try to.
So, Carol, if Laura, are you willing to participate?
I will definitely come if I can. I have a Monday and a Wednesday night meeting and a
Okay.
Thursday.
And do Carol and Laura, do you have times during the day, Friday or Saturday?
I can't do it tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Operation.
Yeah. I could maybe do it Saturday.
I can't do it on Saturday. I can do
So
it
shall Carol, Laura, and Amy, shall the three of us text afterwards?
That'll work.
Mhm.
Set up a time.
Yeah, and if anybody else wants to, feel free.
Yeah, we'll just email the rest of the council the
Mhm.
time that we can make it.
Mhm. Okay, so the next item was the final tree council plantings this year were completed. So last Thursday, National Grid and Schenectady County and the Niskeona Town Board and Laura was there and I was there at the final planting of the Dean Street, and they did. It was mentioned on the news. There is an article in this Niskeona Spotlight that I just saw today about it, and the Schenectady legislator did an announcement about it. And then we did go over to Aqueduct Park and plant the tree for Andrea, and she was there, and Denise McGraw read the resolution, and I think Andrea was really pleased about having the tree planted there in the park for her, and what was said about all all of her contributions over the many years she's been a member of the Tree Council. So,
The Dean Street planting was in the Times Union this morning.
oh, was it?
Mhm.
Okay.
I heard about that.
So anyways, that's that. And again, thanks to the efforts of Amy and Andrea for meeting with all the people there, and working with Nick. And I think the National Grid was very pleased and said, and so was Schenectady County, that we seemed very proactive in getting the trees planted. I asked about how many other trees were being planted, and they said, well, they're following up with other groups, and it's not, it's not all happening. That they were very pleased that we kind of took the lead and made sure that it happened and got the trees planted. So I thought that was very nice.
Awesome.
So
I have a follow-up on that. So I think with Andrea's tree, I think that brings us to 41, right? Because we
Okay.
had 39, then plus hers, plus there was one more resident who kind of called in or sent a letter afterwards. So I think we're at 41.
Yeah, we are.
Which is awesome. And then I have been working on the packet that Linda then revises and sends out to the homeowners, like we did on Ray and Cornelius, which is, hey, this is what tree you have, and you should water, and this is how you take care of it. So I thought with this location that I would really like to see all of the trees in a little pamphlet given to each person, not just the tree that's in front of their house, because I think it's such a huge learning opportunity. And when you drive up and down, in a couple of years, when those ginkgos are big, they're going to be show stopping, and people are going to be saying, oh my gosh, what are those? And same thing with the cherries. Oh my gosh, what's that? And the one that was last planted, which is an Ammermachia, which is rare and going to be amazingly gorgeous. People will, not just the person who lives there, but other people on the street will be saying, what is that? And it might be neat to have all of this information in one little booklet. Now, if we're worried about printing costs, maybe that could be something that we could send them online, or maybe we scrunch it down and print back to back and make a little folded pamphlet. I don't know. That would be Laura and Linda telling me the info about that. But I've been working on getting the information together. So this is an example. So it's showing the common name, the scientific name, the mature size, what zone the plant's in, and then it shows how to identify it. So this one is a red maple called Red Sunset, and it tells that the leaves have 3 lobes. And the way you tell a red maple from sugar maples and Norway maples is that the leaves themselves are smaller than sugar maple and Norway maple leaves, and also the petiole, the little stem that goes from the leaf to the branch, is red. And then I talk about how it looks in all 4 seasons. So in the spring, it's going to have tiny red flowers and green leaves, and we progress through each season. And then a special quality about it, in this case, it tolerates wet sites. So I have questions for you. I don't know if it's appropriate. I kind of wanted to put the location, so right where my finger is.
I'm not sure we should put the location.
I was worried about it not being kosher.
I think we could say these are the trees that have been planted on Dean Street. And if you give that much information, they should be able to identify them. But again, you don't want people, I don't know. I think some homeowners may feel uncomfortable about that.
And then, so next question, is it kosher to say between these cross streets, like between Webster and it's located in this, or is that still not good?
I think that's okay. Don't you, Laura?
Yeah, I definitely think an address would be a no-no.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like a block is probably okay.
Okay.
It's not kosher to say kosher.
True.
But,
That's true.
yeah, I think, because this was a Dean Street planning project, and I think in the news, or, we've already identified kind of the area in which they were planted. I think that's okay, but I don't think putting people's personal addresses we should do that.
Yeah, like
Great.
for the ginkgos, you could say north of Webster. There's some beautiful ginkgos. something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And this would be color. I just don't have a color printer.
Yeah.
So
We'd only be doing about 40 of them, right? For the 40, well, not even 40.
not even 40.
because-
Way
Yeah, 'cause
less
a lot
because
had-
several houses have 2 and some houses have more than 2.
Yeah.
So it'd be less than
Mhm.
40. And it would also include the part that we already did for Ray and Cornelius, which is kind of, this is how you water, this is how you take care of it.
Okay.
I think we can do that. If you want to finalize it, me and Linda can figure out a way to print it out and distribute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next is the Napa Court. Laura, do you want to give an update on that?
Yeah, just real quick, because we talked about this last time. I met with all the homeowners there. It was just another case of maybe coming in too late, or I don't know. A lot of them were very opposed to trees and weren't very nice. So I got them cited where people wanted them and put a lot along Ravine, and they were planted 2 or 3 days ago. And there's only one house left who Amy was the like angel of Amy as normal, and tried to find me a bunch of the trees or similar type of trees that the last house on Napa Court wanted. They were down to like a columnar plum, or we found a sargentii cherry, and they were okay with either of those. And so the guy was working really hard to find him. He ended up finding a columnar plum.
Okay, cool.
2 of them. So anyway, the last 2 trees are going in probably next week, and then that planting will be complete. 24 trees on Napa Court. Probably only
How many,
about
Laura?
Huh?
How many trees on Napa Court?
24. Although, like,
24.
honestly, it's probably more like 10 on Napa Court and 10 on Ravine, because that's just how it ended up being. But Ravine could certainly use the trees, and it's directly adjacent to Napa. So that's kind of how it goes. If you can't fit the 2 trees on each lot, then put them as close as possible as, to where you can. So there's, I think, 5 columnar sweet gums
Wow.
in the center.
Wow.
Well, I don't know. I have to go look.
That's cool.
There's 5 columnar something in the center. And there's some pretty cool trees that they found out there. We let the homeowners pick, which we tried to do on Dean. So that ended up working better when we could convince somebody that a tree wasn't going to kill them. So, yeah, it was weird, but good to get the trees out. And the one thing that I was thinking about was, and we've talked about this before, it's hard when a subdivision is like 5 or 6 years old and people have been living in their yard, because we came across this on Campo Court, and they're like, I already have trees. I don't want trees. What are you doing here? And so, like we were saying, like maybe we need to make sure that these trees get planted earlier. So proactively, I reached out to Amador subdivision. That's one, it's kind of old now for you guys, but it's the one off of Balltown Road on Riley Way, and they have like maybe a third of the houses that are going to build up. And so I emailed the guy and I said, hey, you're getting pretty far along on building your houses. Can we make sure that you start putting the street trees in now? Because I don't want them to have lived in the house for 7 years and then have us come back and mess up what they feel like is their place. And he wrote back that they are already planting the street trees. So I was like, yes. But I think that should be our plan going forward anyway. I'm going to double check that is true. He said he was going to double check for me as well. But getting them in as the homes are being planted, so like I want to do that on Kelt's Farm, I want to do that on some other ones, is obviously going to cause, I think, hopefully, a lot less discord than coming back in 7 years later and saying you have to have a street tree. That's the plan.
Yeah, and Laura, can you somehow tell the developer that they need to tell the homeowners that that's part of the requirement? Because you said, you were dealing with the people on Napa Court and they had no idea that these trees were supposed to be planted. And yet it was a condition when they bought the house with the developer that he was going to plant these street trees. I don't know if there's any more, forced communication between the developer and the residents up front that street trees are going to be planted, are required to be planted in front of your house.
Yeah. And I, in true Laura fashion, was very gentle about it, but I, shamed the developer there because he was standing next to me and they were all saying that they never heard that they were supposed to get a street tree. And I was like, well, shame on your developer then, because it's in all the plans and it has to be there. But it still didn't help because that one in particular, like they didn't even have a top coat on their road. They've been living in that subdivision, some of them literally like 5 to 7 years, and still didn't have a top coat on the road. That's very unusual. But you guys probably already know, like Windsor had the same problem. It was a slow build out and they were big homes. And when the the guy went back to plant the trees, there was a massive uproar. It just took too long from when the houses were put in to when the trees got put in.
Is there any tie-in to, before you get your final approval for your CO, that the trees have to be in?
So we have never done that, but we could, and that could be something that we do. Like I said, Amador sounds like they're doing that, because when I reached out to him, because I started to get worried, I didn't want to get in an argument with 66 single family homeowners. Like 10 was enough.
Mhm.
But he said that when they do their final landscaping and turn the home over, they are planting the street trees. That's what he said. That's not a condition from the town. They're doing that. But I think that maybe thinking about it as being a condition from the town would be totally appropriate, because I think it's much better to get them in before the homeowner even lives there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
could, bye, Daryl.
Bye, Daryl.
Oh, bye, Daryl.
See you later.
I'm so terribly sorry. I forgot to say something on the Dean Street planting. There's this 2 trees planted on an off street, a cross street, Webster, and one of them we have to move. And so I have to talk to you about it. I went up and looked at everything, and it's way, way, way too close to their already existing tree. And I think this was one of the few times where we had cited the tree before we did the call-ins. When the people came to show where the water pipes were, right, and the gas line, the utilities were actually in the way. And so they could not plant it where we had wanted it to be. And so on the day of planting, I think they moved it. They did call me once or twice to say, is it okay if we move? This one particular one is just physically too close to an existing tree, and they will grow into each other. They're only a few feet away. So I think we have to talk with Nick, and you and I talk about that and then have that moved.
Yeah. I think Nick will move it.
Mhm.
So we'll just do that outreach.
Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we move on to the reports? Public outreach, we don't have anything new other than, like I said, we met and we were doing the fall foliage photo contest. So I think we're excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's it for the public outreach subcommittee.
Carol, for you
yeah.
guys, I know the other idea you had was to do the scavenger hunt of the Arbor Day trees, and we ordered the 1 or the 2 signs that were needed, and I paid for them, but they still haven't come. But I'm thinking, I think we can still get those signs in this fall, but maybe we could do the Arbor Day scavenger hunt for all the different Arbor Day trees and tie it into our Arbor Day for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And do you want me to check on the status of those tree plaques? Or?
You can. I don't know how long it takes for them to get shipped, but I definitely paid for them and definitely haven't gotten them yet.
Okay, I'll check on that tomorrow or Monday. And you have the other tree plaques, so you're going to try to get the highway department to put those in?
Yep.
Okay. How about the tree inventory Well, I think that's just Chris. So nothing has happened on that as yet, from as far as I know.
Yeah.
And if we need more people, if more people want to join that committee, I think it was Steve, Andrea, and Chris, and both Steve and Andrea have left the council, so it's down to Chris. And I think I'm on that subcommittee also now. So if you do, just let me know or let Laura know. And then tree planting subcommittee, Amy, anything new from what we've talked about?
So I'm going to continue working on that little packet I described to you. And then I think our next thing should be tied up with trying to make sure we use the budget this year. So can we get more trees to install, or can we order more things? Paul is also on this committee. We did have Melissa and Andrea on this committee. So right now there's just 2 of us on this subcommittee.
Oh. And another thing for the tree planting subcommittee to think about is we are getting 22 elms in November, end of November.
So, and have we determined where we want them to be?
I mean, I think some of them, we were thinking of putting them at Aqueduct Park, to fill in some holes, because we will be able to see now where the trees are that the developers planted. But I don't think that's going to be able to take all 22 of them. So
And they're small, right? Well, they're bigger than last year, but not real big.
they're bigger than last year, but not real big. I think they're 8 to 10 feet. Last year's was 6 to
Okay.
8. So
I think when we talked last, we were going to ask the software guys, as I call them, to let us know where the red hot zones were with parks. So I'm not as familiar with all the, I'm more familiar with the parks I live closer to, obviously, and I'm not as familiar with other park sites in town. Is there a way for us to determine the need of some of the other park sites?
yeah,
And Amy, just
I
to
think
let everybody
Birch is
know,
ideal.
yeah, parks are ideal. I agree, Paul.
Yeah, no power lines, you don't have to worry. They're just huge trees. And
yeah. And just to
you
let
need open
everyone
space.
know, it's up on our website and it's interactive. So you can go to our website and see where the red
Thank you,
zones
Carol.
are. So I've looked at it a couple times and it's very helpful. So
I think there might be locations along Lions Park, along the bike path on either side, where there are locations and that would be neat to create a canopy of, because that's how they're traditionally used, with their vase shape forming a tunnel.
Oh, you know what? They planted elms on Ravine. They planted Princeton elms. Princeton? Something with a P. Some disease resistant elm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I also envision them to be planted kind of together to make a stately like row, because they're just so beautiful that way. So if you see like a couple areas where it looks like you could put a row of trees, then let me know.
And how many did you say? 20 something?
It's 22.
22.
So we had 21 last year. We have 22 this year, and then I think we have 24 next year.
great.
Laura, do you think we could put any on the other side of town hall at the library site? Because, we have them on the town hall site and you'd get that canopy effect potentially
Yeah, we could look.
on the edges, on the corners, maybe put a
Mhm.
couple. I don't know. If
Or
they
maybe
want
like
them right in the center.
like in a line going up to connect with the trees that are on Knott's Landing, maybe.
That's potentially a good spot. I was thinking on the corners of the library property to kind of blend in with the existing ones that are there, the 4 that are at town hall.
Yeah. I think that directly across from the elms is the, garden, which we can't mess
Yeah,
with.
it'd have to be on the corner.
Yeah, it would
on
have
the
to be on the
corner of the
corners.
property.
And then there's some arborvitae, but I definitely think there's some spots there that we could put
The
in.
arborvitae is set back quite a bit. I think you could get 2 in there. It'd be nice to try to balance those 4.
Yeah, no, I think you
Okay.
can probably get more than 2 actually.
Yeah, well, there you
Good.
go.
Good. Okay, anything else? Well, I think we covered a lot tonight. Thanks, everyone. And does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn then?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Okay, anyone want a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Talk to you
Good
soon.
night, everybody.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.